Tip number 2, and be motivated by what you're seeking to achieve. Don't be motivated by what you're seeking to avoid. Yeah, and lots of people are motivated, but don't want to lose market position, they don't want to lose status, don't want to lose those clients, don't want to lose market share, revenue, income, don't want to lose this account, this pitch. It's the equivalent of being a golfer and saying, I don't want to hit it left. But I don't want to drop it in the water. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You look guilty there. You look guilty there, mate. So, let's be motivated by what we're looking to achieve and create. And let's reference it often. Let's bring it to life. And let's allow that to be our driving force and motive.
Jamil, you're very welcome to the ScaleX Insider podcast. I'm really delighted and thrilled to be speaking with you today.
Hi, Brendan. How are you?
I'm doing great, really good. And we've just found out actually we have one thing in common in that we're both parents are from Ireland. So your mum's from Longford, which is a wonderful place. So delighted to have you on.
Central Lowlands, that's where she's from. So I remember going there very well as a child. Used to enjoy Ireland lots, still do.
Brilliant. Well, look, whenever you're across again, please get in touch. As I open up with the podcast and ask the question to all of my guests, our vision is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of SMEs to scale with purpose. So, Jamil, what does scaling with purpose mean to you?
Oh, you start with a tricky one, don't you? Well, I always think that entrepreneurialism is about self-expression, and I think that companies and I think leaders go wrong when they focus upon what they can have rather than what they can be. So I think scaling with purpose is all about self-expression, bringing our best selves and best organization into communities and society and with the customers, consumers, shoppers, clients that we serve. And then getting bigger as a result of the value that we create for other people. I think the best way to realise your own value is to create value for others. So if you do that, I think you can't help but be successful and scale in any way which you see fit.
I love that answer. We've never had that. This is the fifth season of recording, and I've never heard the answer to that question articulated like that. And that's the essence of our entire podcast today. It's that ultimately trying to get to the root of why leaders do not fully express themselves, why they impose limitations on that self-expression. So just before we get into that, for those who aren't aware of your phenomenal career, we heard in the bio some of the work that you're doing, but can you give us a brief tour of your career to date and how you got into performance enhancing psychology?
Yes, okay. I fell into it really. I mean, my background was business and marketing, but I've always had an interest in psychology. And so, having failed miserably at business and marketing, I just thought I might as well do something I enjoy. So I decided to sort of chase my passion more than my pension, and thought I will do something that I've got a real interest in. And as soon as I made that decision, Brendan, I had a huge amount of luck. As soon as I said, okay, I'll go and do some psychology. I don't know where or how or who for or for how much. I started meeting some really good people in sport, who said, "Oh, if you can do any psychology, come and work with me." And it just took off straight away. So I started working with golfers predominantly, and I worked at the highest level straight away by pure chance, by pure luck. And then they did very well. And professional sport was a really small world. So all the golfers knew other golfers, and then they knew Premiership footballers, and they knew England cricketers, and it's how it all works, really. And so sport at the highest level is such a small world that, you couldn't help but talked about if you had some success with someone. So I was quite lucky. I sort of did what I do. And I wish I could tell you there's a great business sense behind it, but there wasn't. I ended up working with Formula One people, golfers, boxers, Premiership football teams. And because there was money in those sports, I couldn't help but make it as a supplier or partner, in that particular field. So it wasn't through great business acumen, it was just the fact that I was, hanging out with these people who I guess sort of enabled me to learn my business and realize its worth and value, as I started to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned luck there. Just on a side note, do you believe the universe conspires to support you whenever you lean into your passion?
Yeah, do you know? I mean, I'm not spiritual at all, so I don't want to sound. I don't want to sound like that. But I think it's true. Yeah, I do, and not from not from any spiritual perspective. But I just think that it actually makes sense. I think that the more that you say yes to things, the more that you and follow things that you're enthusiastic or enjoyable or you find enjoyable, and the more you meet people who you have an interest in, I think the more sort of opportunity presents itself.
Yeah.
So no, I think what I did was at that time I said yes to lots of things. I really hung out with people who I enjoyed being with, had a good energy, they had a good take, they had a good um, perspective, and I couldn't help but realize opportunities from those interactions and connectivity. And I think that here lies the lesson. I don't know about you, mate, but the more that we've been asked to stay apart, the more I've realized how much we need to be together,
Yeah.
arguing, debating, sharing, serendipity, overheard conversations. It's all the things that that allow us to gain a context on the world that we're stepping into, to therefore then make better decisions. So you can almost argue the more people you know, and the more people you speak to, argue with, and debate with, the more you start to make sense of the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we'll come back to something that you said there in terms of the importance of the network, because I would just add to that that when you're debating and arguing with those people, make sure that those people are people that you want to spend time with, that they're bringing good energy, and they're it's a constructive argument, that they're arguing for the better intent as opposed to just to demonstrate their rightness.
Yeah, there's a really big difference between wanting to have conversations and wanting to win conversations. And you're absolutely right. I think that once you're with some people you can have some healthy debate and healthy argument with, and there lies the lesson again for business, is that we want organizations where we can have healthy conflict, where we can challenge each other, we can have diverse opinion and psychological safety.
Yeah,
So people are free to
yeah.
talk and speak about what they know or believe, and for us then to make sense of it and focus it upon creating value for those who choose to interact with us. And it starts with that debate and discussion as much as anything else.
Yeah, completely. And you've mentioned something else which we'll hit on in terms of psychological safety and the importance of leaders creating that psychological safety within the cultures that they cultivate within their organization. So let's open up. Psyche is the very first principle of our 10 principle scale X framework, commonly referred to as mindset. How would you define mindset?
Um, okay, that's a huge one. I mean, in its most simple, in its most simple terms, I think that it's about creating a way of thinking which allows us a particular way of doing. So I think consistency of mind gives you consistency of play. So whether you're a golfer or whether you're a CEO, consistency of mind gives you consistency of performance, consistency of play. I think it's hard to be consistent when the world is unpredictable, complex, uncertain, unfair, improbable. It's all those things. But it always has been. So I think mindset is about the precursor, understanding the mental building blocks, what we think about, that enables us a consistent performance in the light of changing circumstances.
Brilliant. And how important do you feel that consistency of thinking, focus on developing that consistency of thinking, is in relation to success in business?
I think it's really important, and I'll tell you for why. It's really hard to consistently generate great outcomes in a world which is disrupted as it is. So hear me out on this one. That if you can make great decisions and get a really poor outcome, or you can make really poor decisions and get a great outcome. Those things are possible. And this is why I've worked with leadership teams who have confused luck for genius. A terrible decision, it's worked out bloody great, because of the market or the competition or something.
Yes.
So I think that if we are consistent in our thinking, we would not be judging our decision making by the outcome, which we only know retrospectively. We would be judging our decision making by the intrinsic quality of our decision making process. So I guess that what we need to do is to look at how we make decisions and a robustness in the decision making process, which we can consistently rely upon, not necessarily the changeability of the successes and failures that we all endure or celebrate on a weekly basis. So the way we should gain a consistency, I guess what I'm saying, is to have a look at how we make decisions, how we create a framework for thinking. Don't be blindsided or have the red herrings of successes and failures compromise what it could be in regard to building a process and mechanic for going about our business in a way which is more consistently and robust, consistently successful and robust in its ways of working.
Again, lots in there, and I want to create some context. I shared with you at the outset, in the UK alone, there are 5.7 million SMEs. And I mention the UK because it's the last market that we're aware of that there has been a considerable piece of work done around the scaling infrastructure. And back in 2015, there's a significant piece of work done. And 5.7 million SMEs, this was revised in 2019. Those 5.7 million SMEs are contributing £2 trillion worth of revenue to the UK economy. Now, half of that £1 trillion is coming from 34,000 SMEs, less than 1%, 0.6%. And the research cited lack of ambition of the leader as the single biggest impediment to why companies don't scale. Now, when we go back to your original answer about ultimately scaling with purpose is about the ultimate manifestation of your self, it's optimizing self-expression. What I'm really keen to understand, because there's such an opportunity here, if we can move the dial only a little bit on those number of SMEs who are scaling, this has a huge impact on those leaders themselves, their teams, their organizations, the community, society at large, and ultimately the economy. So not to put too much pressure on you, Jamil, we're going to get to the root of this morning. So what, how would you interpret lack of ambition in the context of mindset? Is it simply a mindset?
It is a mindset, yeah. So and the reason why is that, and there's reasons that can be many and varied, but I would say the reason why most people are limited in regard to their ability to expand and progress and become more ambitious is their belief system, is what they believe to be true. So I think belief system is probably the greatest inhibitor of human performance, and that holds us back more than anything else. Whatever we believe in regard to our stakeholders, our customers, our pricing points, our competition, globalization, legislation, compliance, governance, all the things that affect business inside and out, whatever we believe holds us in place. So for us to create bigger and better outcomes, we need to challenge our perspectives. Now, here's the good news, is that there has never been a better time to challenge what we believe to be true. So, the world has changed substantially. So our businesses and the assumptions they've been built upon have been roundly challenged. The assumptions this world has been built upon have been roundly challenged. So it makes perfect sense now for us to question what we believe to be true and find out whether it's still evidentially correct or not. And I think that once we start to move outside of the mental tramlines, habitual thinking and legacy thinking that holds us in place, then we can create some new possibilities. So I would suggest at the moment that if you are looking to scale, or you're looking to improve, or looking to be future relevant and future literate, that curiosity is worth more than creativity. So creativity is often something which is applied loosely. We need to innovate. We need to be more creative. But it almost sends us off in all sorts of different directions. An innovation which doesn't create value at the value point, where a customer meets your organization, is pointless. So we don't really need creativity. We need curiosity, because curiosity asks more specific questions. Why is it that we don't sell in that geography? People never buy from us in that geography. Why is it that we can get customers to buy this, but they don't buy that? But these two work together. Why don't they? We can never get these two teams to work together. We can get these two teams to work together. That'd be great. Why don't they? So curiosity allows us to answer more specific questions, which test the assumptions of our business, more so than saying, right, guys, let's get creative. So I think that once we start to be more curious, we start to have healthy levels of challenge. We create an environment for experimentation, and that doesn't need to be costly. We're not talking about let's try this in a new market, let's buy some stock and see whether we can sell it here. I'm talking about a whiteboard. I'm talking about some good conversation where we can challenge what we believe to be true. So someone says something about customers won't be ready for this yet. But I know that we're looking to expand. Customers won't be ready for this. I know we're looking to expand, but we never really fund ideas like this. I'm not sure we will ever fund it. So we have these conversations which are self-limiting. And I think we need to ask some better questions of ourselves and other people. Questions like, why do you believe that to be true? Who would disagree with you? And what evidence would they use to contradict you? Lovely way to get people to think about what they're saying, which they believe verbatim, which may no longer hold water. So I think in answer to your question, I'm sorry it's a long answer, but it was a big question.
I'm loving it.
So in answer to your question, I think for us to become more ambitious, for us to realize our potential, is not about learning new technology, not about learning a new language, not about going back to school. It's actually about asking ourselves and other people some better questions to move outside the current belief system which holds us in place.
I want to get into that, but it would be remiss of me not to reference the best question that's ever been posed to you by a 6-year-old. What does the what does the number 9 smell like?
Great question, isn't it? A great question. So it's a brilliant question. What's the number 9 smell like? And it's the category error which makes it really interesting. So and the reason my kids ask amazing questions. So I've got 5-year-old twin girls. I'm amazed by the questions that they ask. And one of them asked the other day about where did the first human come from? So because humans come from tummies, then where did the first one come from? 5. And so I went into a complex explanation of evolutionary theory. I didn't actually. I tried to explain evolution to a 5-year-old. I should just plumped the easy answer. God.
Yeah. Well, what I normally do in that situation is say, go and ask your mother.
Yeah, that's the one. Exactly. But do you know what? Now I've got your details. That's my friend Brendan.
So let's get into that, because kids do that wonderfully well in terms of moving beyond. Well, they're not aware of tramlines, mental tramlines, and so they don't have these kind of rigid frameworks by which you can only ask a question that's directly relevant to this, and you can't connect it to this. We develop those mental tramlines consciously or unconsciously as we mature. So I want to get under the bonnet of this in terms of actually. And we assert that you should lead self first before you lead others, before you lead an organization. So as a leader of a business who has ambition to scale, what should I be doing practically on a day-to-day basis to start questioning the belief system which I uphold?
Yes. Okay. So actually, can we try an experiment first before I answer that?
Go for it.
Do you have pen and paper there?
I do indeed.
Okay. Just draw an alien for me. I'll answer your question.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer your question. Draw an alien for me.
Yeah.
Use your proper hand. Let's have a look. Come on, it doesn't need to be detailed.
Yeah.
Right.
There we go.
Perfect. Very good. So you've got a big head and big eyes, haven't you, on the
Yeah.
body?
Yeah.
With a slim neck. I think I know her. But you know what? What's really interesting is that, so I gave you a really wide brief when I said just draw an alien. Now, I assume that you've never been abducted,
No.
but if you say that to most people, let's say I had a room of 30 CEOs, 30 and entrepreneurs in the room. So, everyone, can you just draw an alien, please? What will happen, and you're not wrong, it's what people do. They will all draw an alien with, a head and big eyes and antennae, a few arms, whatever it might be. No one ever draws a sandwich or a dot or a cross or a cloud. Everyone will just draw our representation and understanding and our perspective on what we believe an alien to be. And all of us will draw the same thing, all 30 CEOs, all 30 entrepreneurs. So how do we scale? Is the question. How do we create clear blue water between ourselves and the other people who draw aliens the same? And the reason, or the way in which we do it, is by gamification. So gamification is all about playing some games. And playing some games is getting into a room or doing it on your own and having 10 minutes with a blank sheet of paper, and you can either say to your sales team or to your board or to yourself, if we were 3 times more expensive from tomorrow, 3 times more expensive, how would we sell? We maintain our income levels, going to just perform exactly the same as we are now, but from tomorrow, every single one of our products or every single one of our services is 3 times more expensive. How would we sell? The easy answer from someone is that we won't sell a thing at that price. Never going to work. But, well, let's play the game. Let's imagine that we had to. So how would we do it? And someone said, well, do you know what? We need to add value then. It's not about price. It's not about cost. It's about investment. Can we link what we sell to how much people will make as a result of it? Can we give them some cash back on something? They buy it at this price, but you get the cash back depending upon how successful it is. Or you buy it at this price and we'll also give you one of these for free. We usually charge for these, but let's just give it to them for free. You will be amazed by the conversations you can have. If we gave away all our products for free tomorrow, everything's going away for free, how are we going to make money? Well, that's interesting. What about training? What about user adoption? What about consultancy? What about strategic alliance? There's people will come up with all sorts. If we had no marketing budget this year, what would we do? If we had an unlimited marketing budget this year, 10 minutes, guys. I've got my sales team here, 5 of you. We've got an unlimited marketing budget, but you've got 10 minutes to spend it. As many ideas as you can quickly. Now, once we start to gamify, once we start to play games and break the parameters that hold us in place, we start to draw aliens differently. We start to construct a different perspective on what could be. Let's imagine that a super competitor moved into our market, someone who put us out of business in 24 hours. If these people came into our market and did this, all our customers would leave us for them within 24 hours. Let's design that super competitor, guys. And let's draw on a whiteboard the people who would put us out of business. Tells you loads about your own business when you do that. So, I think that once we start to gamify and create time and space to explore what we believe to be true and what's holding us in place, we might find that by thinking divergently, we can become more convergent in the ideas and make some of them practical. So, I think this idea of gamification, thinking outside of how other people think, is really useful. Now, I pretty much guarantee you, and I know there's business continuity teams and all those sort of people, but I pretty much guarantee you that there was no organization, maybe there was, but I feel as though there was no organization who 2.5 years ago sat down and spent a whole day with their board and senior management and came up with a question on the whiteboard, which was, if all our 7,000 staff had to work from home overnight because there was a virus, what would we do? No one ever played that game. So imagine if there was a company who played that game. I think that they would win because of the stupidity of the question, how absurd it is. It's never going to happen, is it? How absurd it is. And yet, there's not necessarily a level of preparation, but there's a level of thinking which will tell you something about your business, about how people are working or want to work.
Who have you worked with conscious of sensitivities and confidence that exemplifies this culture of encouraging gamification?
Yeah, Emirates Airlines do it really well. They do it great. Some tech companies do it great. There's a company called Derivco in South Africa who I worked with for a while. And they did really well with handing over more autonomy and empowerment to their people, allowing them to ideate, come up with new ideas, new ways of working and doing, inverting the pyramid, allowing people to have permission to make decisions based upon what they're seeing and experiencing and know. So off the top of my head is a couple of organizations. I think I probably see it more in tech than I do anywhere else. I think there's some legacy sectors, banking, utilities, some of the big telcos who struggle with the curse of incumbency. This is how we do it, and we're big, and trying to turn those organizations around up. Sometimes that turning around an oil tanker, aren't they?
You've had the opportunity to get inside Emirates, clearly. And it's an airline that I always chose to fly with. If I had the choice to fly, I really enjoyed the Emirates experience. In your view, what characterizes their culture to allow this to happen?
Yeah, so I think they're actually an innovative company, and I think that what they do very well is, and I talk about this a lot actually, and so lots of my talks I'll talk about this, that they define themselves not by what they sell, but by what their customers value. And the fact that you called it the Emirates experience is exactly that. And so I think once we define ourselves not by what we sell, but by what our customers value, and then work backwards in an open-minded and agile manner, then I think that we can be future relevant and future literate. So changing consumer buying behaviors, the way in which customers and shoppers want to interact with organizations is changing all the time, not just through big data and technology, but macro trends, such as our want for a sustainably successful world. Create an environment that that we want to bring our kids up in. So people are choosing to interact with different governments and brands and organizations based upon how they are feeling. So I think in the last 12 months, last 2 years, that reputations haven't been made, they've been revealed. We see it with governments, we see it with brands, we see it with organizations. And I think that Emirates will always reveal itself as a brand, that's based upon great customer experiences, not beholden to the rigidity of process. How many times do you call a contact center or get caught in a telephone tree, and the thing that you're still hearing after 20 minutes is your call is important to us. So it's clearly not. It's genuine. After half an hour, it's not, is it? So I think that if any CEO phoned up their own contact center, to change something or modify something or buy extra, I'd like to think they'd be mortified on many occasions.
Yeah.
So I actually think that customer-led innovation is the way forward. Let's start to talk to people about what we do right and wrong, what they'd like to see and what they'd like to experience. Because not only are customer needs changing, but the way in which they want to access those needs are changing. So we need to be so customer-centric and not see our customers as consumers to be sold to, but as an essential network and partnership to be engaged with. And once we start to move together into a world where we can all find the beauty in the chaos as a strategic alliance, more so than a transactional relationship built upon building our businesses, maybe that's where our scale comes from.
Yeah, you've hit beautifully on the 7th principle of our ScaleX framework, proposition. And I mean, it's incumbent for leaders to understand the value that they bring to their customers. You know, either they're serving a need or solving a problem. I use the acronym VALUE, you know, the V, vagueness kills, alleviate the pain, leverage the gain, understand it from a customer's perspective, and then engage with those customers to tell their story about how you have delivered them value, not what you perceive the value to be. And I want to come back to something you just in terms of what you described, Jamil. It brings me back to a great quote from James Allen in his 1903 book, As a Man Thinketh. Circumstances don't make us, they reveal who we are. And in many respects, COVID has revealed who customers or who companies actually are. And there are a number of things in this. Well, there's lots in it, and we can take it lots of different ways. I was at an event on Friday, and Mark Dowds, the CEO and co-founder of a company called Responsible, mentioned curiosity as one of the most significant leadership traits, aligned with what you've just said. He said, remember, curiosity only kills cats. It doesn't kill us as leaders. And Michael Gelb, who we had on last season, has teased out or carved out 7 principles from studying Leonardo da Vinci, and curiosity was the single standard of Leonardo as a genius.
Yes.
Now, what I'm keen to get at is how do we as individuals, as leaders ourselves, if I wanted to start something in the morning, if I wanted to start a practice in the morning to become more self-aware, to help move beyond the existing mental tramlines, how do I do that? Because I must get comfortable with that first before I walk into the boardroom with my leadership team and say, we're going to play a game today. And people look, oh, what's happened to him? I must get comfortable with that in the first instance. So what would you encourage leaders to do to begin this process of self-awareness, to move beyond the mental tramlines?
Okay, so 2 things in relation to your comments. I think there'll be 2 types of company in the future, brave or dead. And so I would suggest not having to get outside of your comfort through a series of exercises, gimmicks or hints. I go and do it. Go and play the game. Just go into your boardroom and say, we're going to play a game. And don't worry what people think, because we haven't got time, and we need to get moving. The pace of change internally has to match the pace of change externally. And if we are going to change as fast as the world around us, as a leader or as a business, we need to get doing. We need to start, practically moving in a direction which allows us to not be better, but to be different. And that's the key as an organization, isn't it? So many organizations are good at being better. They're bad at being different. We can all reduce cost. We can all race to the bottom. We can always get more efficiency and to more effectiveness and productivity. It's not a differentiator when it comes to core proposition, as you've discussed it. So I would suggest us doing it. That's where I'd come from. And there's no better way to exercise your confidence and courage than to do the thing that you fear. So, I think let's do it. Having said that, for those who may be a little more faint-hearted or a little more traditional, I think that the Leonardo da Vinci example is a good one. Not only was he passionately curious, but he was really well connected. If you read his diaries, he exercises his curiosity through other people. So I'm going to go and visit so-and-so today and find out how to do this. I'm going to go and visit whoever and watch them do that. So his curiosity is actually, if you read the diaries, is all based upon connectivity and is having diverse opinion and thought. So, and access to it. So, I guess that we go on this journey of self-awareness and personal introspection through the lens of other people. And there's no better way than to expose ourselves to things which are different to what we know. And in that way, we get to find out a little bit more about ourselves. And we get to find out a little bit more about ourselves from the people who we are engaging with. So a perfect example, for me is the guitar. So musically, I'm crap, but I'm dreadful. I don't have a musical bone in my body, and I'm definitely not a natural guitarist. But by learning the guitar in a way which is not naturally fluent, I've had to find out lots about myself. I've had to use a variety of learning techniques because I tried something and it didn't work. It doesn't work because it's a bad technique. It works out because of who I am. I can't learn that way. It doesn't suit me. So I'll try something else. No, that doesn't work either. So let me speak to so and so and find out how they do it. No, that doesn't work because they're them and I'm me. So I'm actually not just learning a skill, but I'm actually finding out about myself as well, because I've put myself into a situation which is not natural. So you can almost argue that there is no courage without fear. There's no learning and development without the amateurism. And so I guess that, do you know what I mean, if I was to sum it up, we need to think more like an amateur. We need to think more like an outsider. We rely way too heavily on our technical expertise. I am valuable because I know lots of about accountancy. But, I'm valuable because I know lots about sales and marketing. And we have a competency dependence. But for us to step outside of that and understand ourselves better away from our technical expertise may allow us to bring our full self into the workplace.
Yeah, brilliant.
And coming back to our conversation, that's where scale comes from. Maybe one of the limiting factors is us believing that what I know is going to make me successful. But it's not what I know as a CEO. It's how I think about what I know, how I share it and debate it and challenge it and allow it to come to life in a new and different way, which might be outside of my current perspective.
There's, again, so much in that, and we all always advocate to our CEOs who are interacting with us through our ScaleX Accelerator program that it's incumbent on them to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and part of that, we take them through the Wim Hof method and actually expose them to some cold therapy. And back to your point about playing the guitar, and actually I dispute the fact that there's not a shred of a musician within you with an Irish mother. I have to dispute that. So it's definitely in there. You're just not looking hard enough. But I remember standing in Wim Hof's house with Wim Hof and 30 others from 18 different nationalities across the world. And it was the furthest place from the boardroom I had been in 6 months previous. And I thought, what the hell? What am I doing there? But intuitively, I thought, this is right to do. This is a wonderful new experience. And actually, Wim Hof has a wonderful scaling mindset, just a thirst to learn from other people, and a curiosity that I've never witnessed in someone.
That's interesting.
It's really lucid. And that experience, just leaning into that, was a wonderful journey, and I ultimately became a Wim Hof method instructor, and I feel that it has benefited not only me at a personal level, but those who I now have the great fortune of coming in contact with. Now, in terms of that network, if I was to speak to many of those individuals, those sporting stars who you have helped to become #1 in the world, and we mentioned a number of them in the intro, what would they say that you helped them to do that has ultimately changed the way they now perform?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is I try to give people new perspectives. So when you give people a new way of looking at things, it doesn't allow them to gain more skill sets. It allows them to use the skill sets they've already got in a different way to which they're currently using them. So if someone can create a new perspective on what golf means to them in their life or career. If someone can create a new perspective on practice, if someone can create a new perspective on fitness, or a new perspective of dealing with stress or pressure or making mistakes, they may then choose to act differently in certain situations or context. And that in itself may drive bigger and better outcomes. So, what I try to do is not change people, but, allow them a new way of looking at stuff. If they look at stuff differently, there's a good chance they will feel and act differently. And so if that heads in the right direction, then we've got success. So, like very simply, I just did a talk now, actually, just before we got chatting. And we're talking about the use of language. And, with leaders, I always say, never say you want to make a change. You say you want to make a change, people don't like it. And, people literally fold their arms. So hang on a minute. If you say, I'd like to try an experiment, I guarantee you people will jump along, jump on with you. They'll be committed. They'll want to do it. So guys, I'd really like to try an experiment. And what we're going to do is we're going to give this a go. People are fine with an experiment. People don't like change. It's exactly the same thing. So I think by choosing new words, creating new images in people's heads, and think differently, they might start to feel differently and act differently. So, that's the sort of thing that, I do really, is try to give people new perspectives, reframe things.
So bringing that together, how we think ultimately determines how we feel, will determine how we act, and invariably the results that we get. How important, in terms of that new perspective, is articulating, helping those leaders, those sports stars articulate a purpose?
Yes, depends who you are. So some sports people had to work harder with purpose. Some not. So purpose is never achieved; it's attained on a daily basis. So I think the mistake that some people make in business, in particular, is that they think that purpose is a destination. So, here's our purpose. This is what, we're seeking to achieve. But it's not. Purpose is never achieved. It's attained on a daily basis. So it's a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It's a reason to, it's a reason for being. So, this is why Tiger Woods keeps working. It's why Richard Branson keeps working. It's why Warren Buffett keeps working. Because it's purposeful. And I think in organizations, I think that purpose maximization will always drive profit maximization. So the more purposeful we can be, there's some really good examples of it as well at the moment. The more purposeful we can be, galvanizing our people around a worthy cause, the better. Passion is a significant multiplier of human performance. So I think as a leader, if you're looking to scale at an SME, don't look at yourself as an organization with targets. Look at yourself as a community with a purpose. Talented people who choose to show up and express themselves to create something which is worthwhile and sustainably successful. And you imagine as a leader, CEO, entrepreneur, if you can get a group of people who are galvanized behind a worthy cause and who are choosing to express themselves in an organization because it's worthwhile, isn't that worth so much more than our usual ways of recognizing and rewarding the right behavior because we put it on a poster on the wall? Sometimes when I'm being mischievous, I as you know, I speak to quite large audiences. I do lots of talks, if there's 250 people from a company and in front of me, I'll sometimes say, "Can I just ask a quick question? How many of you drive into work every day thinking, I cannot wait to express my company values?" And you can see everyone look sheepish, everyone including the board in the front row. And then I say to them, okay, then, if I'm just being mischievous, I said, answer this question instead. How many of you drive into work every day thinking, I cannot wait to increase shareholder value? Like everyone just looks equally as embarrassed. Because it's not about that, is it? Why do you do this? You don't do it because it makes you your fortune. You do it because of your love of learning and engagement and helping others and sharing information and knowledge to allow people to realize their goals and dreams. And isn't that a worthy cause?
Yeah, no, completely. And I come back to our own purpose: inspire, connect, enable ambitious leaders of SMEs to scale with purpose. And when people, regularly contact me on a personal basis, whether through LinkedIn or social media, just to express their gratitude for people like yourself, for me sharing the wisdom that people like yourself, Jamil, bring to their lives, to their teams, to their organizations, and that's fuel in itself. And you've hit on something there. The second principle of our ScaleX framework is purpose and vision after Psyche, and purpose. Absolutely, for us, it's why you do what you do, and the vision is simply the mental manifestation. It's the mental pictures, the manifestation of that purpose. So if I come back just to use the example of our own, so that's our purpose. Our vision is to inspire, connect, and enable millions of ambitious leaders of SMEs to scale with purpose. Now that takes on a different context. If it was only 10, I wouldn't need to do a podcast. I wouldn't have written the book along with Claire. So that drives then the ambition level of our purpose. How important do you feel vision is in the context of scaling and moving beyond those mental tramlines which create these self-imposed limitations on us?
Yeah, sports people do it very well. They have good vision. Sometimes, I would suggest, better than business people. And it is important. I think there's two ways of looking at it. So, vision allows us to create a opportunity to understand where success lies. So, this is where we're heading. And so the more specific we can be, the better. It can be argued that. So someone would say, "Oh, I like a big house." Well, okay. Or you can say, "I like a big house with beams and a gravel drive, and you can hear the cars coming up and a nice crunch on the gravel." Now I think that if we can be more specific in where we're heading, and this is what sports people do really well, they've got great vision. So they really see things really clearly. And Paul McGinley, who I work with, Irish golfer, and he was great, good vision. Not just vision on shots, but vision on career and ambition. So very specific. And quite a few people who are very successful, I know, had very clear, very good clarity on it, with specific vision. So, I think it's really useful. But although it's useful, we also need to be careful that we have the vision, because we need to know what success looks like. We need to know where we're heading. But the rigidity of plans that can get us there might not necessarily do so. We always need to be open-minded about the way in which we get there and deploy resource to opportunity as we see, as it reveals itself, because of how the world's changed. So no plan survives first contact with the enemy, as the saying goes. But I think it was Mike Tyson who said that, all plans go out the window when you start getting punched in the face. But as soon as you meet the competition, as soon as you see changes in the market, as soon as you get customer complaints, our strategy and plan changes. But if you've got the vision, you've got the purpose, the flexibility and fluidity, the agile thinking and open-mindedness is in itself a great strategy at the moment.
Yeah. I love that, and actually, we cite that quote in the book. I think it's a brilliant quote. We're all champions until somebody punches us in the face. And again, just back to planning and performance, which is our fourth and sixth principle of the ScaleX framework. We encourage our leaders to deconstruct their 10-year moonshot into 3 years with much more pixelation, creating, just as you were describing there, the crunchy gravel underfoot. Already I get a different picture. There's much more pixelation on that house, and we encourage our CEOs to really drill into describing that feeling of how their brand how will feel like, how it will look like, how their employees will act and behave, how their customers will talk about them, and really bring pixelation into that, but breaking that 3 years down into 1 year, and then taking the 1 year down into 90 days to allow that fluidity and to allow that flexibility within the planning process. So it's a brilliant point. I'm conscious of time, Jamil, because there's there's just so much in this. I have to ask, as part of my research, I discovered that you're only one of a few external psychologists ever to be allowed to study astronauts in the 2008 NASA space program. I mean, that's incredible in itself. What did you learn that from these ultimate high performers that we can take into the business world, or people listening today can practically apply in their own lives to begin trying to develop beyond the mental tramlines that box us in?
I'll give you a big one and a little one. But, the big one is that I never realised that NASA is built upon testing assumptions. So it's an incredible first journey to the moon. So because none of it had been done before, you have to make assumptions. So it's first principles thinking. That okay, so someone's going to get to the moon, then they need to be able to breathe in space. So that's an assumption. Is it true? And if it is, how would they do it? And literally deconstructing these ideas and theories based upon what they believe to be true. It's an amazing story. But it's ideal for what we are talking about today. It's because it's all about something that had never been achieved before. And it's the exploration of the ideas, testing of the assumptions, the suggesting what might be true and what you might do about it, which has enabled something as significant as that. So that's important. I'll give you the other big thing as well, actually, which is a slight aside, because it isn't to do with NASA, but it just made me think of it as we're talking. Is that when JFK announced that this is what they're going to do, this was the speech about, we're going to put a man on the moon. If you read the speech, it's not very good. So it's not a great speech if you read it. It says that we'll put a man on the moon because it's hard and not easy, which is a rubbish reason to do anything. So the logic was low, but the way in which it was delivered, if you watch it rather than read it, you can see how it mobilized a whole nation behind the space race, and in fact mobilized the whole world behind science. The lesson for leaders is that let's not talk figures, numbers when it comes to selling a vision, brass charts. Let's tell a story. Let's share a vision. An important part of the human trust ladder is to give a bit of ourselves away. And we do that by sharing our excitement, our enthusiasm, by creating a picture of what could be and what we can achieve together. So storytelling is incredibly important. Let me go back to your question. And then on a micro level, rest and recovery. Whenever I say to business people, what will make you perform better? So I bet you have it all the time. When you speak to business owners and entrepreneurs, say, what do you need? More time in a day, extra pair of hands. This is how people talk. You speak to a super performer, you speak to a Premiership footballer, a fighter pilot, an astronaut, medical teams who do these 8 or 9 hour operations, and say, what do you need to perform at the highest level? And they say rest, recovery. The complete opposite of business people. Business people say, I want more time, more energy, and whatever it might be. Someone else will say, I need more time out, and I need more time to sharpen the axe. And so, intense periods of high performance require us to have good levels of recovery. And I think as business people, and I think in the last 2 years in particular, I think in the UK, last year we saved 80 million hours of commute time. I bet you everyone worked it. And for every 50 minutes that you spend at a computer screen, you can lose up to 20% concentration. And so, no one's working 9 to 5, are they? Working all sorts of hours. So, I think for us to take rest and recovery into our own hands. That's the lesson from astronauts as CEOs, is the idea that we need to take more time out to get more done. Yeah, and I think it's a really useful one at the moment. It's no longer about time management, it's more about energy management. Yeah, and that's where we need to be careful.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, and it's completely aligned to our own coaching around the our scaling program. And there's a number of points that I love the fact that you've teased out the importance of telling stories and couching your vision and whatever stats you want to take in the form of a story, and being able to, practice communicating. It's something we take our CEOs through: practice communication, and practice that communication of your vision, because ultimately you're trying to inspire, motivate, encourage others to follow you. And that's so critically important. We also, I love the term kind of CEO as chief energy officer. And it's, again, incumbent on all leaders to bring that energy to their teams, but they can only do that if they're back to the old cliche and, putting their own oxygen mask on first, and to be in a place where they're energized themselves and to be able to give that energy then to their teams. So, and then just on a further note, and that has triggered the thought in my head, again, we encourage our leaders to think of themselves as corporate athletes. And athletes look after themselves in relation to the small habits and disciplines and practices that they put in place. They sleep well, they exercise, they have good nutritional habits, they hydrate, there's a self-care routine, and they have an enduring growth mindset. So I love that. Conscious of time, coming into the close, I always ask our guests for 3 timeless takeaways. Jamil, you've had an amazing life. And continue to interact with the world's greatest and best performers. What 3 timeless takeaways would you leave with our aspiring scaling leaders today?
Okay. Here's one for you. If you've got a marketing problem, who do you go to? We go to marketing. If you've got a HR problem, who do we go to? We go to HR. They're the people who gave you the problem in the first place. So I think we need to think like the outsider. And let's talk to other people outside of technical expertise about what they would do in regard to our advertising marketing strategy, in regard to our communications policy, in regard to our work from home policy. Let's speak to some people who don't know. So I always think, let's have a look at the wisdom of crowds. Move outside of your technical expertise and other people's to gain a new perspective. Right, tip number 1. Tip number 2, and be motivated by what you're seeking to achieve. Don't be motivated by what you're seeking to avoid. Yeah, and lots of people are motivated. I don't want to lose market position. I don't want to lose status. I don't want to lose these clients. I don't want to lose market share, revenue, income. Yeah, I don't want to lose this account, this pitch. It's the equivalent of being a golfer and saying, I don't want to hit it left. But I don't want to drop it in the water. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You look guilty there. You look guilty there, mate. So, let's be motivated by what we're looking to achieve and create. And let's reference it often. Let's bring it to life. And let's allow that to be our driving force and motivation. Number 3, no one has ever wandered around the bottom of a mountain and simply found themselves at the top. If you want to be successful, if you want to be more ambitious, then you have to choose to do it. So I also believe that success can be a choice. If I go into leadership teams and say, what will enable you to be more successful? Let's say we need more confidence. We need more belief. We need more focus. We need more customer centricity. That's like, we need collaboration. All of these things are a choice. You can choose to do any one of those things. You can choose to turn up tomorrow into your office and be more collaborative. You could choose to trust each other more. You could choose to communicate better. You could choose any of them. So I actually think that teams are as successful as they choose to be. And I think the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people are prepared to do what unsuccessful people are not. Now, that to me is about choosing a given attitude or a given way of being when it would have been easy not to. So, that's what I mean by that. Is that, as a salesperson or as a CEO or entrepreneur, the difference is often how we think at a given moment when it would have been easy to think something else. And our thoughts are all a choice. So we can choose to react and respond and think and contemplate about something which will drive a better outcome or opportunity than what we find ourselves in from the circumstance. So first one, recap, think outside of current expertise, get counsel elsewhere. Second, be motivated by what you're seeking to achieve, not what you're seeking to avoid. And then the third one is understand that success is a choice. If you want to do it, commit fully and truly own choices that you make in the light of changing circumstances.
Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. I love those, and that's a great way to wrap up today. Ultimately, success in regards to scaling is a choice. It's a decision that you must make. Commit fully to, we always say, scaling to the summit of Scale Everest. You gotta make the choice to go up there.
Yeah.
And I love those, Jamil. Tell me, in closing, what's next for you?
What's next for me is a meeting in London. So, so I need to get there and have this meeting, and I think I'm fairly free for the rest of the day. But what's next for me career-wise? I think, do you know what? I'm really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. I'm doing lots and lots of talks, and it's lovely to be traveling and doing those talks. Yeah. So I'd like to continue doing this. I'd like to play the guitar better. If you can help with that one, and I'll be passing my 5-year-old twins your way. that's what I've got from this call.
I look forward to bring your guitar across, and we'll have a session at any stage. If people want to reach out to you and connect with you, Jamil, where's best place to connect?
Twitter is good, Jamil_Qureshi, or my LinkedIn. I don't use anything else.
Brilliant. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I've really enjoyed the last hour. It's absolutely flown. You've delivered so much value in that. Jamil, I wish you all the very best with everything you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you in Ireland sometime in the very near future.
Thank you so much for having me. See you later. Have a good day.
Take care. Thanks, Jamil.